Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
Well, Simon Provan, we are headed back out east. We get to go to Washington again. We had a couple weeks ago, we had a chance to speak with head coach Jim Gabarra of the Washington Spirit. We've chatted with Christine Nair. Now, Simon, we get to talk to Crystal Dunn of the Washington Spirit. She's a up-and-comer in the Washington Spirit's system. She is a huge impact player for the U.S. women's national team as well. She's exciting to watch. She's very nice as well. And now she's here on Two Up Front. Crystal Dunn, welcome to Two Up Front.
Hi, thank you guys for having me.
You are welcome, Crystal. We are excited to have you on the program. As you just heard us talk about, we've had a couple other folks from the Spirit on, so we are excited to continue the tradition of having Washington Spirit folk here on Two Up Front. And someone like you, Crystal, carries a lot of weight now in the soccer world for not being very old, Crystal. How are you handling all that pressure so early on in your career?
Yeah, it is a lot of pressure, but I think it's important to kind of, not let external factors kind of affect my game or, my mood going into games and things like that. I think there's always going to be pressure, but of course pressure makes you better. It makes you, feel on edge and makes you care about, what you're doing. So, pressure is not all that bad. I think if you can handle it and manage it, that's obviously what can bring the best out of your game, and I think that's what it's been doing.
So speaking of pressure, Crystal, we can't help but ask about what happened this weekend.
Oh, gosh, if there was any question to avoid, that would be it. Portland played a really great game. I mean, they were super physical, super aggressive off the start, and for us, we just, I feel like we never woke up. It was only until the second half that we were like playing with urgency and playing like, we really cared about being in the game. And, at that point it was too late. We were down 3-0 in the first half, but, a lot of those goals were totally, huge errors on our part. And, whether it's the first defender or the second defender or third defender, it was a collective as a team effort, obviously, but I just think that there were so many errors on our part, and Portland did a really good job of just putting them away. So, before we knew it, we were down 3-0, and, just one of those games.
Well,
so
and it certainly doesn't.
Unfortunate.
Yes, and it certainly doesn't help. That was the one thing I noticed watching the game, is that it seemed like the Spirit did themselves in more, not to take away from Portland's game, but that you guys did do yourselves in more than the Thorns pressing on you. For example, goalkeeper going for a clearance and bouncing off a defender going in your own net.
We've all had that happen more than once.
Yeah, Crystal, you had you showed. No pun intended, you showed your spirit in that game, though, with that amazing assist that you had, taking the ball down on the right, fighting very strongly off a defender, getting the ball in there, and of course, Joanna Lohman with a fantastic goal as well.
Does she know how to score okay goals? Because every time I feel like she touches the ball, it's always either like a bicycle kick or some diving shot here or whatever.
Like wild goals, yes. She's like so known for just like throwing her body in the game, and she basically, represents that with all her goals. But it was awesome.
She really does. She's fun to watch.
She is fun to watch. I'm just so happy for her, and it's just great to be on a team where, you guys, we just spoke about pressure, and I feel like going into this year was a lot of pressure on me to perform the way that I did last year and, score a bunch of goals. And, obviously I haven't scored a goal this year, and that's not weighing on me, but it is kind of like something that I do think about from time to time. But, if I'm on a team where everyone's getting involved and everyone's scoring and we're winning games, I can't hang my head about me not scoring. And I feel like that is something that I had to go through this year, is feeling like, the media is trying to make me feel like I should be upset about not scoring goals. But I was like, my team's in first place. I'm assisting some goals. We're winning. Like, who am I to be, sitting in a corner pouting because I didn't score? And I feel like, just having Joe on my team or having to put the ball away is something that, I'm very grateful for. It just means that I don't have to be that person scoring, and I'm already having targets on my back. So, it's very helpful having others contribute.
Yeah, it's especially, obviously, the pressures there. NWSL MVP last year, and being in a league, you're named MVP, and yet you're playing in the best league in the world for women's soccer. You got Kim Little, who was named BBC America's English Football Woman Player of the Year.
Incredibly talented.
Of course, many of your U.S. women's national teammates. So I can understand where that pressure is coming from.
Well, speaking of pressure too, as a whole, Crystal, you mentioned about being for the Washington Spirit. You mentioned about being the defending MVP. But now we kind of zoom out a little bit, and now we're on the international stage. For someone like yourself, even though you're one of the younger folks on the team, you still carry a lot of weight at the international level, similar to some of your other counterparts that are still working their way through the system as well, like Morgan Bryan and Tobin Heath. But you made the roster for the 2 Japan friendlies coming up here before the final, reduction down for this for the Olympic Games in Rio. What does that mean to even be the fact that you're in consideration to go to something like the Olympics?
It's such a really great, just thought to have. I feel like it's so hard to even focus on the Olympics throughout the season so far because we've been having game after game after game, and it's sometimes you kind of forget about the fact that the Olympics are coming up because you're so focused on the game that's coming up in a couple of days that you don't want to take your mind off of what's in front of you. National camp is coming up Friday, and the girls haven't been together in 6 weeks. So this is going to be really crucial for us all to be able to get back on the same page and, focus on the U.S. national team instead of being with our club team. So, for me, I'm super excited to be in consideration, obviously, of making this roster because it's an 18-person roster. It's very tiny. Getting cut from a 23-person roster last year was hard to take, and just this roster being just smaller is way harder, I feel like. So for me to even be in consideration, I'm super excited about that. I just feel like I've worked my butt off all year. Ever since last year, I feel like I've always been trying to prove that I belong, that I can play at this level, and I think I've done that. I might not start every game with the national team. There's games that I might not even play, but I feel like the moments that I've been given with the team and the minutes that I've been given, I've been pretty happy with what I've been doing. And I think that's basically all that I'm focusing on going forward is, whatever minutes I'm given or whatever playing time I'm given, I just make the best of that opportunity.
Talking with Crystal Dunn here of the Washington Spirit and U.S. Women's International Team on 2 Up Front. Crystal, I feel like the stars maybe aligned a little bit for you, especially for the Olympics this coming year with more well-known players like Amy Rodriguez and Sydney Leroux both being out for other reasons, which kind of left the forward pool just a little depleted, which it's hard to call it depleted because you still look at the names that are still around and you're just, any other national team would be kind of like, well, how is that depleted? Because there are some fantastic ladies still around, but because there's only 4 of you battling now, instead of possibly what would have been maybe 6 or even 7, depending on if others would have been called in as well, I feel like that does improve your chances a little bit. But it's a fine line, I feel like, for a team that we all know is so closely knit like the U.S. Women's National Team, because obviously so many of those ladies are your friends, but at the same time, you're all still trying to go to work every day, and you're still trying to compete for a job at the end of the day as well. So are there little things that you're trying to do here and there to, put yourself a little bit farther up the totem pole at all, or are you just hoping for the best?
I wouldn't say it's like hoping for the best, like closing your eyes, crossing your fingers, but at the end of the day, I think things happen for reasons. Coaches make decisions for particular reasons, and, all you can do is really put in your effort, be coachable. If your coaches are telling you something, obviously try to apply it into the game, because obviously things like that they look for. And with me, like I said, I've been, doing my very best. I've scored 12 goals with the national team since I've gotten brought back in. And, it's things like that I continue to just surprise myself. I continue to keep doing things that I'm like, wow, like I never, saw myself doing that. And it's, moments like that I'm just so excited about what the future has for me because, just I feel like good things obviously keep falling my way, but I don't think it's anything to do with, me closing my eyes, crossing my fingers. It's, me just putting in the work and, whatever happens from this moment on happens. If and when I go to the Olympics, obviously that's a dream come true, but, last year I've handled being cut from a roster, and I feel like if that happens again this year, I would just have to deal with it for the second time in a row. So,
Crystal, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, nope, that was it.
You had said the word wow, and when you look at your career, that's the first word that comes to my mind. Going all the way back to your high school years, there's not many players that can say the only reason they missed a high school soccer game was because they were called up by the U.S. Youth National Team. All-American in high school, you won state championships in high school. Then you go to the University of North Carolina. Anybody who's a soccer fan knows the history of North Carolina. And Dean Smith is famous for saying, "We're not a men's basketball school, we're a women's soccer school."
Yes, I love that quote. Yes.
Herman Trophy finalist, All-American at North Carolina. Then, of course, drafted number 1 to the Spirit, U.S. national team. I just have to ask you, is this the first time you faced any type of adversity in your career with when you got cut?
Yeah, it's actually crazy because I would say this is probably my second time. When I was with the youth, I want to say 15 teams, I actually didn't make our U.S. U15 national team. And that hurt pretty bad, and that's a pretty young age where I was kind of like, wow, this is like the first time, I wasn't chosen, at that stage, I really couldn't ever see myself not making a team. But then it's funny, after not making that team, I ended up getting called up to the U17, which is 2 obviously years older than that. And I was kind of like, well, that's funny. How did that work? I didn't make a U15 team, but ended up making a U17 team. So I think it's things like that, it shows that it's really a coach's decision. One coach didn't feel like I was, good enough to be on a U15 team, but our U17 coach saw me and thought that I fit perfectly. So, from taking away from my experience last year, I just feel like, it's a person's opinion on, where you're at and your ability and, if you fit well with the team. And yes, these people have an important role, like a head coach. But I think for me, it was all about just kind of telling myself, like, hey, I might not be ready now, but it doesn't take away from my ability to play this game. And that's basically how I, took it last year.
So, Crystal, you kind of answered my next question, but hearing about, you getting cut from the U15s, if you're talking to young kids who perhaps are facing that adversity, kids who aren't used to losing, or kids who feel like that's all they do is end up on losing teams or have some losing moments in life. Would you add anything to that message, talking to them and saying, hey, don't let this define you?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that is the most important lesson that I have learned through my experience is, I keep going back to this, but, it's one person's opinion on your soccer career, but it could either, make you toughen up and kind of make you be like, I'm going to prove them wrong, or, I'm going to keep working, or it could really make you crumble. And I've seen it go either way. And, for me, everyone asks, like, what was your motivation last year? Like, did you wake up every day and was like, you got to prove yourself wrong? And I was like, you know what? It was about me waking up every day just being like, I have the opportunity now to get better than I was before. Like, if I thought I was good then, like, I am now going to be a complete player. And, that's what I was most excited about, was stepping away from 2015 feeling like a completely new person. Like, thinking that I was good then and then feeling like, I've improved so much was just like the greatest thing that I can take away from last year. So, yeah, to young kids who kind of go through their first kind of heartbreak, I just want to tell them, like, your career is going to be so long playing this sport.
Right,
so if you sit and pout at age, like, 10, 11, 12, 13, like, you have a very long career ahead of you, and there's going to be some more down the road. So, you got to learn how to deal with it then so that you're prepared later, Awesome. That's
such a great attitude to hear, again, especially from somebody who's as young as you are. Crystal, this weekend, the Spirit are playing the Houston Dash, a team that really is up and coming in the standings.
Go Dash.
I'm assuming, obviously, you won't be there because you'll be at camp. Is that correct?
Yes.
So do you have an opportunity then to at least check in on the team while you're at camp, or are you pretty much just so focused on what's going on at national team camp that you don't really get a chance to get away and check in with your club team?
No, I'll for sure be checking in. I just think that I'm flying on that day, so I'm hoping that I land well before the game is played, so I have time to kind of, set things up and get on my computer and watch. But no, I have so much confidence in my team, and yes, coming off of, a very, very tough loss in a very, very big environment to play in. It's games like that make you actually appreciate the games that you play well as a team and you win, because you have to go through kind of like some games where you're like, wow, this game is real brutal, for you to appreciate the good games that you go through and stuff like that. So, I'm really excited about my team. I think that was just an eye opener. We were dominating, we were playing really well, and I think that was a game that we probably went in a little too lackadaisical, just going through the emotions. And I just feel like we got put back in our place, and now it's time for us to continue to fight and kind of contribute things that we've always worked hard for, and that's playing well as a team and working hard for each other, and hopefully that trickles into the Houston game.
Exactly. Well, this gives you an opportunity, too, as well, Crystal, from an outsider looking in to kind of survey the team a little bit more. You'll have a little bit of extra time to really get an idea of, say, hey, I'm not a part of this game anymore. I can actually look outside and get more of a bird's eye view, and then take those things back to, training in the next couple of weeks and say, hey, this is what I noticed. Fantastic. Well, Crystal, thank you so much for taking time here on 2 Up Front today. Crystal Dunn, number 19 of the Washington Spirit, and she has 2 exciting games coming up against Japan as well. Good luck in those games. We are excited for you and the U.S. women's national team, and hopefully we can check in with you again in the future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Crystal. We
are going to run to a break. When we come back, we've got a lot more exciting things to cover here on 2 Up Front. You're listening to 2 Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com.